Veldt.
Who's going first?
Author background. Our author, Ray Bradbury, was one of the 20th century's most celebrated writers. His writing included different modes like fantasy, horror, science fiction, mystery, and realistic fiction.
He decided to become a writer at the young age of 12 and 13 or 13.
Bradbury could not afford to go to college, so he went to the library 3 days a week for 10 years.
In high school, he published his first short story in a magazine.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. In a magazine, and went on to publish 4 issues of his own magazine, Futura Fantastica, the year after he graduated.
He sold Pendulum, his first professional piece, in 1941. In 1950, Bradbury published the Martian Chronicles, my bad, which was his first major work.
Film adaptations of his works starting in 1950 let his work reach more audiences.
Due to writing his entire life, Bradbury was able to publish more than 30 books, almost 600 short stories, and numerous plays, essays, and poems.
He won the Pulitzer in 2007.
He died on June 5th, 2012, in Los Angeles.
Uh, okay, so I had the psychological lens. So some underlying psychological context is when the parents enter the nursery and it's an African theme, and they see lions eating a carcass and hear people screaming. Not knowing who it is screaming or what the lions are eating, they are haunted by this and can't rest. It is later revealed in the text when the kids lock their parents in the African themed nursery that they realize those screams they heard were theirs, basically indicating the parents' death. There are many types of behaviors among the family that is seen through this story vividly, both from the parents and the children. When the story starts, both parents show fear of the nursery, that it's becoming too real and now it's becoming to be dangerous. In the text, the parents said he could feel it on his neck, still like a hot pot, and the lions and the smell of blood. Remarkable how the nursery caught the telepathic emanations of the children's minds and created life to fill their every desire. The children thought lions and there were lions, and the children thought zebras and there were zebras, sun, giraffe, death and death. In that part of the story, the parents have fear for the Veldt, and later on in the story, it comes to regret when speaking to the psychologist for allowing the house and technology to overrun their lives, including letting their children disrespect them and the Veldt being their parents. This the cause the cause cause of the regret. The parents decided it would be best to leave the Veldt and home altogether. You've let this room in this house replace you and your wife and your children's affections. This room is their mother and father, far more important in their lives than their real parents. And now you come along and want to shut it off. There are many behaviors that the children show, one being the hatred they have for their parents when it comes to the parents trying to punish them and take the Veldt away, which resulted in them not having any respect from their parents and using the Veldt to kill their parents. Don't let them do it, wailed Peter as at the ceiling, as if he was talking to the house, the nursery. Don't let father kill everything. He turned to his father. Oh, how, oh, I hate you. Insults won't get you anywhere. I wish you were dead. And my questions are: is relying on technology a bad thing? Is the way the children were are acting from being spoiled or because they aren't punished?
I believe the way they rely on technology in the story is a bad thing.
Agreed.
Yeah, but like in everyday life, my stomach is growling. In everyday life, it's okay sometimes, but the way the children like used it for everything and the house used it for everything was just too much.
I mean, I felt like we use technology to better our lives, but like relying on it at that point, I mean, they were incapable of even cooking or like even like doing anything for themselves, which is like a huge shocker because I mean, technology is there to help us, but dang.
Like in a scene where they prepared stammering over my words, in the part where they made dinner and they're like, oh no, we forgot the ketchup, and then it just magically appears on the table. Like, you could have got up two
think a lot
steps and went and got it yourself.
I think a lot of us would, if because I mean we live in this era, a lot of us would probably appreciate the house itself that it did everything for us. But even though we have technology, I even like to do things myself here and there.
I think making human connections is a big thing in this story. Like technology taking over human affections is something you ever really have to watch out for.
True. I think
I
we
think
can go.
I do
I'm
think that the children are acting that way from being spoiled by the house and the fact that they aren't punished. I think it's like a dynamic duo. I don't think it's more so one than the other.
I think had they, I mean, I feel like spoiled, yeah, but I feel like they probably wouldn't have acted as bad if they had at least boundaries or been like had a source of punishment. Because from the story, it looks like they run their parents over.
Yeah, and it was like whenever the mom first said that they should turn off the house, like the dad was like, "But remember how mad the kids got last time?" So that just shows like the kids are
Yeah,
running.
it's more like they're afraid of their own kids.
The fact that she was mad at her husband for turning off the house when they first did it, she's like, you should ease them into it. But wasn't it
Yeah,
her idea in the first place to turn it off?
I think they're like don't get me wrong, they're spoiled, but I feel like if both parents disciplined them like they agreed to shut off their house, probably would have helped them not like in the way the story ends.
It wouldn't have had such a tragic ending.
Yes.
Anything else to say? We're ready to move on.
Nah, I think we can move on.
Okay.
All right. After reading The Veldt, I realized that even though it was written in the 1950s, it has a message that I can immediately apply to life in today's society. A high technology house at the time might have been some sort of fantasy idea the author had of the future, but today there are real life issues when super advanced technology is more harmful than it is helpful. A message that the author is trying to get across is that throughout periods of technological advances, there is an importance of communication to maintain fulfillment in everyday life. In the story, the kids were obsessed with the nursery, which made their parents question their actual way of life because they weren't using the normal parenting skills because the house pretty much took care of the children. This message is clear today in the use of cell phones and other technology of that source or of that, like related to that. People lack communication and other skills because their smartphone fulfills all their needs, making it unnecessary to even have certain useful skills like remembering things or learning how to talk to people in real life. The Veldt is a story with a message that can apply to everyone's life. Even though you may think something is fulfilling and gives you an advantage, it could just be temporary and over time just lead to even more stress as time goes by, just like the house. Later on in the story, there are several points when the parents talk about going back to normal. Lydia confesses to George that she would much rather turn the house off and start cooking, doing laundry, and giving the children baths again because she has lost her role as a parent, which is affecting her identity. For my questions, the first one, even though the story was written in the 1950s, what does now and then have in common that makes the story's message relevant today? And then the second one, how does the story incorporate lessons about parenting just as it does about communication and technology as well?
For the first one, people still have parenting struggles like back then and today. And today there's a lot more technology, so it's probably even worse to like get your kids off of a tablet or something.
With the second one, I think it incorporates lessons about parenting that, I mean, technology is not bad, like to give to your kids as long as you moderate how much screen time they have. And as far as punishment goes, the way them kids was talking to them their parents, I just don't think my parents definitely wouldn't let it fly, and I just don't think I would let it fly.
Yeah, that makes sense. I agree with both of those.
You guys ready to move on?
Yeah.
All right, so the story first describes a family that lives in an electronic house that basically does everything for them, from cooking, tying shoes, and bathing. Here, the reader gets the idea that even though all of this technology sounds good, it is too much and it is replacing simple living skills all people should have and know. As the story progresses, we notice a conflict between the children and their parents. The nursery, or the African Veldt, is stocked with lions, and the parents fear for their children because it is dangerous and they want to shut it down. The children lock their parents in with the lions, which leads to their parents' death. The author wants us to understand that there are advantages and disadvantages here. The children solve their own problem of not getting what they want. If every family lives in a room like the nursery, life will be terrible. This changes the children's thoughts and makes them extremely lazy. Later, we clearly see that the author is letting us know that technology has replaced the parents of these children, basically telling the reader that we have become way too dependent on technology to satisfy our needs. After reading and analyzing the text, I noticed that Bradbury uses many different literary techniques and phrases to get his point across and give the short story a more realistic feeling. His description of the electronically produced African veldt contains sensory details that make everything seem very real, especially towards the end of the story. Characteristically, the story is more of a fantasy because it's like a child's daydream, where children have the power of adults and adults have the helplessness of a child. He also uses phrases such as "nothing's too good for our children" and "every home should have one" to focus the reader's attention on the worship of materialism in American society. My reaction to this short story is that Bradbury is trying to convey a message that applies to almost all of American society today. In my opinion, he was trying to explain the negatives of becoming over reliant on technology and not disciplining your children. In the story, the Hadleys let technology consume their lives, which negatively affects their family. George and Emily fail to discipline their children, who later on turn into evil individuals and cause the death of their parents. Depending on technology for a happy life and not disciplining your children is something that goes on in every American home today and is progressively getting worse, in my opinion, and in Bradbury's opinion as well. My questions were: how did George and Lydia fail to raise their children? Give some examples. And what does the house do for the family? Explain how the view of the house changes or stays the same for different individuals in the story.
For the first question, like how did George and Lydia fail at raising their children? I would say they failed to teach their children how to interact with other people.
I
giving them everything that they've ever wanted
I
is
feel
no way
like
to raise
they
a
failed.
child.
I feel like they fail to teach their children respect. To not just them, but I think respect in general, because they just didn't respect their parents. So I can imagine that they probably don't have a lot of respect for adults outside their home.
And they take everything for granted. What does the house do for the family? The house cooks, cleans, bathes, entertains the children. But it makes the mom's role in the house pretty much obsolete. So the mother would view the house as a mother to the children. And the father slowly realizes that the house is replacing him as well. But to the children, the house is basically a parent. It's the only thing they ever really learned to care for.
That's a really good answer. I like that.
Yeah, and didn't the son was like, after the dad said that he was gonna shut off the house, the son was like, the only thing I want to do is breathe, sleep, and something. So it shows he doesn't do anything, so he really likes the house.
And to the point where he even he wishes that his father was dead. I guess he got his wish. Are we ready to move on?
Yeah, we're good.
Oh, okay. I did the deconstruction lens. So one of the biggest concepts constructed in the short story is the dynamics of the house, Lydia and George versus their own children. It plays into the concept of human nature, which is something that Bradley really goes into. Human versus human. The parents are concerned for their children's safety from all the time they spent in the nursery. The nursery is filled in a way with what? The nursery is filled in a way with desires the children have for control, or more so, it could be seen that they are emotionless, even robots. The children are, and have no regard for others. The story is filled with many ambiguities such as this. There is no one way to describe the story or to interpret it. The parents are simply concerned for the psychological issues the room may cause them, or even the house, as the parents seem to blame the technology for their problems. There is no one reason that is pointed out to describe the true conflict in great deal. It is all up to interpretation. Though the story seems to favor the fact that the parents are simply concerned for their children, and the children have no real connection to their parents reading to the end of the story to come to a tragic end. The children have relied only on devices and toys for parenting and shelter, never their parents. They did not feed them, dress them, bathe them. What was their value to the children? So it seems as the children decided to take matters into their own hands and take control. The story ends up not clarifying why the children decided to off their parents, other than the fact that they tried to take the nursery away. I suppose in a way it was if they were trying to take the children's parents to them. They had only known the comfort of the room and not of a real mother. The story doesn't have one set way of interpretation, but in many cases, it will lean more so to one than the other. Though interpretation is the best way of reading a story, because you never know if someone sees what you're seeing or something far more intriguing. Um, and you can see a source of like hierarchy, as the children are the lions and their parents are like the zebras and everything in the Veldt. Um, the children are very privileged as they've been handed everything in life, which leads the story to a very bad ending. Questions. What are other ambiguities you can see in the text, and what do you think why do you think the children killed their parents? Ambiguities are like two different ways that you can see something, or multiple ways that you can see one thing.
I think number two why do you think the children kill their parents? I think deep down, those kids probably never loved those parents. And I mean, it's the truth, Julia. But like, I feel like as soon as like their parents were gonna take away their favorite thing in the world, I mean, they just killed them.
I think these children have psychological issues.
Yeah, I think it's because like they didn't even really like have parents. Like they did, but their parents didn't really like take care of them. It was just like the house. So they weren't even like real children. They were just like, I don't know, kind of just like kids that were raised by something that was fake.
Like, the psychologist even told them that the room was very troubling to him because he sees um, a lot of anger from the room shown by the children. And he says that they should turn it off and get out of the house, but do they get out of the house fast enough? Not really.
Yeah, the kids probably really didn't have any emotional attachment to the parents to begin with. And that's probably why it was no big deal for them to lock them in the room. Okay. Archetypal lens. Maybe I'm saying it right. A common theme in other stories throughout time that is present in the Veldt is the struggle for power. The parents do not have much control over the children, and it seems that the children run the house after the nursery. The parents do know that they are not in control of the children. For example, a quote is, "They come and go when they like. They treat us as if we were offspring. They're spoiled and we're spoiled." The father tells this to the wife after they discuss how awful the nursery has become. However, the parents are afraid of how the children will react to the nursery being shut down at first. Another way we can see the children ruling over the parents is by the way the children speak. "I don't think you better consider it any more, father," from page 9. So this was after saying that the nursery will be shut down. I think this is what the son tells the father. The power struggle goes on to be fatal for the parents. They were never able to control their children or the nursery. Continued. In Greek mythology, we often see where the father is killed by his sons. For example, Uranus is killed by his son Kronos, and in return, Zeus kills Kronos. Um, Now, while these stories may have different meanings from the Veldt, the Greek mythology stories show a struggle for power between sons and fathers, and the fathers being killed by the sons. In the Veldt, there was a struggle for power between both parents and both children, a boy and a girl. The children did not kill the parents themselves, but they did lock them in the nursery to be eaten. From this, we can see how the archetype that was used in Greek mythology is present in the Veldt. And then my two questions. Who do you think has the real power in the story? The nursery, the parents, or the children? Why do you think the children killed the parents? Was there even a reason? And we already answered the second one, so we don't have to.
I think the people who have the real power in the story are the children because they control the nursery. So the nursery is like their power over the parents. Because the
I think
parents,
it was the nursery
Yeah, I
because like it like consumed everything out of the parents and the children.
yeah, I think the nursery and then probably the children, because Rachel's right, they do control the nursery, but I feel like the nursery had the real power because like if the nursery was taken out the equation, the kids probably wouldn't have used it to inflict the death on them.
I suppose the nursery is the most powerful, but the children are in power of the nursery. So I guess it's all up to interpretation. I don't know. But you're right, the nursery would be more powerful, but
Yeah, the two feed off of each other is what I think. Like, the children wouldn't have been able to do what they did without the nursery, and the nursery wouldn't have been what it was without the children.
yeah, because even the parent could,
The way to put
but
it.
because like even the parents are so defenseless in the nursery, like they can't even control the nursery with their own minds. Like nothing will change in there like it does for the children. I mean, there was no real reason that they killed their parents other than the fact that they wanted control.
Them kids were probably just psychopaths. I wouldn't say like psycho, but they were definitely crazy.
I'd say the children have serious psychological issues, in my opinion, and they need a therapist. They're probably going to kill him. I wonder if the therapist will come back in the end, like after the fact, and check on the children.
I mean, who
Doesn't he come
knows?
back at the end to check on the children?
No, he came back to get the family, and the children told him that the parents were in the Veldt.
Or I thought he said, like they'll be right back or something. I don't remember. I don't think they told him what they did, but it was just like weird.
The fact that they foreshadowed the parents' death throughout the whole story is what really. But you don't expect it, even if they do. With the bloody wallet and the bloody scarf.
Yeah, I guess that was really unexpected because I think as all the readers were wondering what the screams were from the beginning, and then to find out in the end it was them. It's like, dang.
Do you think do you think it was premeditated, like they have had the lions kill their parents repeatedly so that they could like come up with a sound plan? And
I
that's
feel
why
like
their clothing and wallet were in the.
I feel like
You feel like what? Does anybody else have anything else to add?
no,
I-
I'm good.
Nope.